You had your chance and then you blew it.
That is the most absurd statement of the year.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, baby.
I'm in my zone, I'm feeling it.
Live from Rock Solid Studios in Granite Falls, it's time for MinneZona Sports, live with DJ Matty C. and Paul the Shield Vold.
And this is MinneZona Sports Live. We are back. Yes, episode 55, folks. 55. That's crazy. I can't believe it. 55 episodes. We're still in our season 2. And without further ado, I am your host, DJ Matty C, a.k.a. Matt Callahan, a.k.a. Matty C, etc., 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 and all the way from Woods and Shores Studios in Aiken, Minnesota, Paul Volt, Shield. What's going on there, Shield?
Dude, it is another Wednesday night. The world of sports does not stop, including the fact that I got a haircut this week, and that's right. The hair is gone. I've been told multiple times that dads can't have long hair, so I reciprocated with that. Another great show we got coming up tonight.
Yes, we do that. In fact, we do, Voldy. The haircut looks good.
Good.
And then also, too, we got a lot to talk about tonight. There are so many things that we need to talk about. We're going to start off with the Minnesota Wild because they were on a hot streak, and then obviously we'll get to that in a second. I don't want to ruin it for all the zoners who didn't talk. But then also the big Vikings news as well. So we got to get things rolling, I think, with some tater tot, I think it's called hot take.
Fresh out of the oven, it's Tater Tot Hot Take.
You're exactly right. It is fresh out of the oven. It is Tater Tot Hot Take. And we're starting off with the Minnesota Wild, like I said before. Voldy, we're going to start off a little different here with Tater Tot Hot Take with the Wild.
All right.
I got to tell you, it's a very short story because I told you this before the show. But DJ Matty C was watching the Wild on Monday night, and it was a great game nonetheless. The Wild were playing really well. They were up 4-2, so, obviously it was about maybe 10 minutes left or so in the game. I'm like, they got this, man. I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning, I'm going to look at my phone, and I'm going to see that the Wild went 4-2. Maybe 5-2, obviously with the, extra skater and taking out the goalie, having six skaters on there. But I was like, all right, they got this. So brush my teeth, go to bed. Then all of a sudden the next morning, I'm just like, oh, did the Wild win? Hopefully they did. No, they didn't. They absolutely didn't. They lost in OT 5-4. I was crushed. I'm like, no, did I just give them a bad omen for losing? Like me going to bed. But the thing is these late games are killing us. These late games. I mean, we got to get up for work in the morning. We got to do all this extra. It's just like, man, I was really looking forward to seeing the Wild win. But like you said, Voldy, they did get a point. So there's some solace in that. But was it baffling? Sure, yeah, it was. But there were a lot of good things that I was watching from this game. The speed. The scoring, I mean, they work together very well, and they've exceeded expectations. So, Voldy, I know you caught the first period, but, did you come to the same assessment as well with the Wild?
Yeah, I mean, just the fact they're able to get a point in that matchup, especially going up against Vegas, that is, the top team in the division and also playing really well this year too. That's got to be at least a feeling to know. Okay, at least we know that we can hang with these guys. We got the rematch tonight.
Yeah.
That'll certainly be quite the matchup. You get all lines rolling. Unfortunately, the Wild did lose Ryan Hartman in that one, which does kind of hurt that top line a little bit with Kaprizov and that crew as well at the top line, but. And a couple of things that also went on behind the scenes too. Zach Parise getting in a little kerfuffle with the coach, which unfortunately is not going to play well for him. But then you get guys like Jordan Greenway finally contributing too. That's been a big help. Marcus Foligno in on the mix as well, and Nico Sturm, Nick Bonino as well. Nick Bonino's been kind of an afterthought to start off the year, even though he was one of the free agent signings that Bill Guerin did bring in. But, obviously with a flurry of goals in the second period that did lead up to a 4-2 lead going into the third, you had to feel pretty good. But, with Vegas, you don't know what you're getting night to night. They could be one of the best teams in NHL, and they can certainly be one of the teams that has to scrape for a win. And, well, what they did was scrape for that win, but obviously still 2 points behind Vegas, but being able to, keep within striking distance and a chance to at least go for a tie in the division tonight as well is certainly going to be a big game tonight for the Wild.
Yeah, now, I mean, like you were saying, it's a big game now coming up here. And obviously, this team is showing us something that we haven't really seen with the Wild. There's a lot, like I said before, there's a lot of speed with this team. And Kaprizov, and you mentioned, Foligno had one hell of a game as well. But when you have guys that are rookies stepping up, Kaprizov, and I probably butchered this, Kionin, or the rookie goaltender, who's actually been playing really well. But it's shown, this team has shown a lot of grit, and not a lot of people were expecting them to be this good already. And, the veterans, Suter and obviously Parise, we'll get to that in a second. But the wheels are turning a little bit, and Guerin has done a fantastic job up to this point in getting the guys that they needed. So it's a big game tonight. Metzler's just trying to get us going now. Rookie Minnesota fan mistake, assuming a win is guaranteed. Well, yeah,
you're not wrong.
But at the same time, though, they're not. I mean, but hopefully the Wild don't turn into the version of the Atlanta Falcons and giving up leads like that. But I feel like in hockey, it's a lot like that, with the momentum and everything like that. So I mean, there's always that. But the thing is they. One thing you have to understand too is that they let them back in the game, and that's something that you can't. You gotta be able to beat a talented team with Vegas. There's a reason why they're up in the standings right now, and whatnot. But they've done the Wild up to this point have done a great job. This is a huge game. Now they got to go out. They got without Parise, without Hartman, like you said, Voldy. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if they can bounce back from pretty much dominating at the beginning of the third period. Then all of a sudden things just kind of took a turn for the worst, and Alex Tuck, I believe, was the guy. I remember he was supposed to be the guy in Minnesota here too, but obviously with everything going on with the expansion and whatnot with the Vegas Knights. So, Voldy, as we're thinking about this team, is it pretty evident that this is turning into a rivalry again with the Golden Knights? I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think
Yeah, that's definitely a good way to look at it. I think this is definitely a team that certainly when they came into the league, you thought it would be a really good overall matchup for the Wild too. I mean, a lot of Minnesota fans were actually at the game this past on Monday in Vegas as well. They started letting fans in. That certainly was a nice way to, integrate fans once again. I think certainly it's going to be a nice rivalry as well. hopefully to get to the likes of, when they can play again, the way the Wild play against Winnipeg and those teams up north too, is certainly a good amount of fans that on both sides. There's a few former Wild players, former, Minnesota guys that are on the Vegas Golden Knights. I think it's certainly be quite the rivalry for years to come.
I think so too, and it's going to be, it's not going to be like, the Wild and the Avalanche, because I feel like that's always the big one. That's probably their number one in a way, and there's other teams that could be, put into that conversation as well.
Right.
But again, I think, like we said, it's a big game. We got to see how everything, pans out, especially with Zach Parise out. So let's get to Zach Parise. I'm obviously wearing his jersey right now, and Hunt's made a good point here, because I was looking into this today actually, and he's a healthy scratch tonight, and this is something to where Evason is kind of putting the hammer down and saying, listen, the reason why he's a healthy scratch tonight is because he wanted to get Foligno his hat trick, and that was Zach's reasoning, but wouldn't you rather get the win instead? Wouldn't you just secure the win for one? So, I mean, if this was absurd or approved, I'm sorry, Zach. I mean, it's absurd. You got to win the game. This is a huge game. And, yeah, you get the point, but you could be getting more points, right? If you win this game. So, Voldy, what do you think of Parise's decision on, trying to get Foligno his hat trick instead of winning the game?
Right. Obviously, I think I don't know really what to think of it. Obviously, he's trying to be a team player at the same time. You got to look past the personal goals and the personal side of everything. Obviously, that was a big game going into that one, trying to play for a spot in the top of the division. I know it's still early on in the season, but, the way this year is going, it may take one game to decide who's making the playoffs and who's not. Top two teams in each division move on to the playoffs, and for Zach Parise to miss that shift change and, put his team in that position to where they ultimately lose the game, not a good feeling, not a good start. But I think with Evason and also the confidence to say, you know what, why don't you sit this one out, and, bringing back up Gerald Mayhew and Kyle Rao as well, back up from Iowa. That's certainly going to be, from the taxi squad, I should say, that's going to be a big play tonight, working in more youth. Obviously, Kyle Rao's been around with the team for almost a decade now at this point. But Gerald Mayhew, another younger guy, kind of stepping up into a role. You know what? I think this could be a jumping off point, just like last year with the potential of the Islanders ending up with Zach Parise.
Yeah,
that was kind of this could be a big jumping off point for the Wild to get onto a real nice streak once again, and maybe even put themselves at the top of how they're playing in the NHL. But you know what? We'll just have to see how things kind of pan out tonight.
Right, and I believe some of the quotes that Parise made was he didn't agree with the decision, but he talked with the team and said, listen, this is what my understanding was and what. And honestly, I don't think it's a huge, it's not a huge deal, but again, like you said, Voldy, I mean, how long is he gonna, stay around? That's the big that's the big question, because we love Zach Parise. Don't get me wrong, but when you have a chance to go and get the win, you get the win. You don't talk about, well, he's never had a hat trick, so he can. I mean, that's fun and great, but win the game first. And then if there's the empty netter, you make sure Foligno's up, and then you get it out to him, and, you score. So, but, I mean, I applaud Evason. He's not taking that BS, man. I mean, he's saying, listen, I don't care how much you're getting paid. This is what's going to happen if you, do this type of stuff. So,
right.
But I don't know. Jack O'Keefe says, "What up, Zona boys? What up, Jack? You got a lot of episodes out now for Jack's Junkyard. Been checking that out and whatnot, and make sure the zoners check that out as well. Maybe I'm wrong, but if he had 2 goals already, wouldn't you want to ride the hot hand for the night?" Well, right, but wouldn't you want to win the game first? I mean, if he's staying on for an extra shift, that should tell you, hey, That doesn't sit well, with the coaching staff and whatnot. But I understand, and honestly, it's going to blow over in about a week, or in a couple days, I should say, because it's really not that big of an issue. But anyway, hopefully the Wild get the win tonight, and we can move on from this. That's pretty much how I look at it. But we got one more zoner chiming in here. Nick says, win the game. Paul brought up a good point. No personal record chasing when you want to win the game. Exactly.
Thank you, Nick Thompson.
Team
good to
game.
Hear from you, bud. Appreciate you for tuning in
game.
tonight.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
my guy.
I mean, he makes a great point. It's a team game. Let's get the win first before we, do any personal goal stuff.
Can we also talk about the fact this is only the second time that Zach Parise is ever going to be a healthy scratch in his career?
Yeah.
16 seasons, and the fact that this is only the second time. Obviously, there might have been some injuries along the way, and of course, this is the first time ever he's a healthy scratch with the Wild too, and he's been with the team now a decade now at this point in his 16 years, and now he's a healthy scratch, and it's great to see, especially the longevity of his career here at this point.
He's been super loyal too. I mean, I think, another thing that we have to bring up. Super loyal. Speaking of someone being super loyal, Kyle Rudolph. The news came out yesterday that Kyle Rudolph will be released by the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, you can't do much now because free agency hasn't started and everything like that. And, teams have to, it's all this extra stuff. But anyway, we're going to actually get kind of more into the nuts and bolts of this later on for ARA, for our first story for Absurd or Approved. But, Voldy, Kyle Rudolph's been here a decade in Minnesota, playing for the Minnesota Vikings. And he had a very heartfelt, letter that he sent through the Players Tribune. I really like that, by the way. It's really interesting. There's a lot of guys that use that, and it's good. It's a very lengthy letter. But there was one thing that kind of stood out to me, Voldy, and it's he understands Minnesota. And he's not even from Minnesota. He's from Cincinnati. But he's a guy that just kind of understands, how things work in Minnesota. Now, this is what he said. This is directly from Kyle Rudolph. As a culture, does Minnesota live and breathe football? Of course it does. It's true. You guys are the smartest, most passionate fans I've ever met, but there's also something else about you, something special that I really think sets you apart. It's the way you believe in this team, no matter what. And like many players before, some players don't even, do stuff like this. But he understands that it's tough being a Vikings fan, but at the same time, it's also rewarding in a way because we all believe in this team. Now, if they ever win a Super Bowl, which I really hope happens during my lifetime, or something, just one, that's all we need. But getting back to Rudy, I mean, back in 2011, Voldy, when they got him, I thought he was going to be here a long time, and he was. He was here a decade, and he was fantastic. Yep. And, his strength, his size, and, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He had so many great moments. So, Voldy, let me ask you this. What was your favorite Kyle Rudolph moment, or hashtag mini Shockey moment?
Yeah, I would have to say probably the one that stands out immediately is that set the world on fire, the Duck, Duck, Grey Duck touchdown celebration. And everybody went Duck, Duck, Goose, and then we had to elaborate. No, we call it Duck, Duck, Grey Duck because when do you ever see gooses hanging out with ducks? So, and then we just get called a bunch of idiots and all that fun stuff. That's the one that stands out. Obviously, too, my whole thing with the junior Shockey, by the way, on that. Yeah. One person doesn't agree with that statement as well. That guy can go fly a kite. He knows exactly who he is in the first place. We'll go on from that point, too. But, no, Kyle Rudolph, just like what you were saying, is when we got him out of Notre Dame, I thought that is a fantastic pickup, and especially the fact that he was able to have so much of a consistent career in his time. He kind of came at a cross section when the Vikings needed a huge upgrade at tight end, because at the time, we had the flash in the pan with Visante Shenko, and obviously we had a guy in Jim Kleinsaucer that, obviously wasn't a huge threat in the passing game, but he was here long enough to earn his stripes out of the field. He played with Jim Kleinsaucer. That's how long ago he's been on this team.
Yeah.
And now he's, for lack of a better term, passing the torch off to Irv Smith Jr. and, the other tight ends, Tyler, don't call me Ty Conklin, on the team as well. I mean, there was David Morgan for a little bit who popped in as like that second, third guy too. But, the fact that he was able to kind of transform that position for the Vikings at a point where they didn't have a real big receiving threat other than Shenko in his very brief time with the Vikings. He had that, one really good season when Favre was around. It really helped, take the pressure off a lot of things, especially in the receiving core, and opened up more opportunities in the run game that did explode during his time with the Vikings.
And also too, I mean, he came in at a time where the Vikings, there was Ponder, and obviously AP was still great in his prime, and he's turned into kind of one of the leaders in the locker room, and that's kind of what he was. And I guess for my favorite moment, there's a lot, and Rudy's had some insane catches. But the one catch that I feel like kind of, you know what I'm talking about.
I think I know which way you're going here with this one.
When Kirk threw that dime to Rudy and the OT against the Aints, I mean, he just, honestly, that cornerback got mossed big time.
Yep.
And Rudy went up, and he still can just grab. I mean, the thing is Rudy is so good at catching the high passes and just bringing it down, and just has that vice grip on it. And, and just putting the end to the Aints in that. And that was a game. That was a game where I thought there was no way that they were going to win this game, because, New Orleans was on a hot streak and everything like that. And I wanted the Vikings to win because how much I hate the Aints. But at the same time, we didn't think they were going to win that game. And they went out, they won the game. And Rudy was the guy who won the game for him, to come down with that grab. So, that one sticks out to me. He's had a lot of great catches during his time, even with, the bad quarterback play from Ponder. Matt Castle was even thrown in there as well. He mentions Matt Castle in this, by the way, too. He's
that's how long ago it's been.
Yeah.
Matt Castle.
What
was that, 2013, I think, when he was in the purple?
Yeah.
I want to say.
Well, yikes. We'll see. People are really reading into the fact that he named all QBs in the story, but no mention of Kirk Cousins. Your thoughts on that? Or
Case Keenum. Where's Case Keenum?
So there's a lot to be put. But the thing is you can't be so focused in on who he's mentioned, who he didn't mention, because it's really not that big of a deal. It's just what it is, And we understand, you can't just keep throwing. You can throw everybody out there, but you're going to forget some people. And it's not like he forgot Kirk or anything like that. So I don't know if you're reading too much into it. Just, it's not that big of a deal.
He's mentioning guys that were there for him. He mentioned Sam Bradford, saying that if Sam Bradford stayed healthy, they would have won the Super Bowl, which I'm calling malarkey on that. That is a bunch of bush league right there. Yeah. Sam Bradford is hot garbage if I've ever seen it before.
Well, the thing is, you can't stay healthy.
No, he can't. So, is that my fault? No. Is that his fault? Maybe not. I don't know.
The whole tweak thing, with Zent, he's like, he'll be fine for the next. He wasn't fine the whole year. It took Case Keenum to, for the Vikings to, move on. But anyway, I wanted to mention too is that Kirk congratulated him via Twitter, via social medias, and I think he retweeted it or something like that. So don't read into that malarkey. That's how I look at it. So let's get to the zoners here, because they're chiming in here too. Do you guys think other players in the league will see his letter and have interest in the culture Minnesota provides, or interest in the organization itself? Now, that is something that can be looked at, and people can. I think so. I think there's some players that want to be in an organization where it's nice structure, well run, and that's something. That's almost a player's dream. But sometimes, or most of the time, it's all about that money.
Yep.
So that's kind of one thing.
I don't think the Wilps are afraid to throw money if they threw $80 million at Kirk Cousins.
Right.
So, I mean,
well, the new facility in Egan.
Certainly there.
New facility in Egan. I mean, they weren't afraid to do that.
Exactly.
Pull that. Excuse me. But moving on to our next song. We got Mets talking about... can't talk about Rudolph without mentioning his off-the-field work. Walter Payton Man of the Year in 2018, 2017. I can't remember which year. Maybe 2019?
Three-time team representative. He was the fan vote, I think it was, that one year. He didn't actually win it, but he was like the fans' choice or whatever. I think that year it went to, I think it was Chris Long or somebody.
Yeah, something like that. But his off-the-field work is, bar none, probably the best. And also reading that letter that he did not too long ago as well. Real tear-jerking stuff. But
oh, yeah.
I mean, it was good. Let's see. Jack says, I really thought, obviously Castle, not Castle, but was going to be the Purple franchise QB for a very short period of time.
Missed opportunity.
He slanged bombs. That's all I gotta say. I mean, he was a good player.
We don't want to finish the second half of that statement right there.
We don't.
For the soccer
if you
moms,
want to know, for the soccer moms.
It's one of those you had to be there moments.
Yes, it is true. Make sure that you get your sign. He says fact. And he said, yep, those players go to Santa Clara. So there's that.
Yep.
We know Jack's a big 49ers guy, if I'm not
Niners.
mistaken. So, but anyway, one other thing I'm going to add. Oh, damn you, autocorrect. No problem. Like I said, this happens all the time. I misspell stuff all the time, so no worries. But one thing I'm going to add. Last year, myself and Papa Callahan went to Golden Gophers basketball game. And they Kyle Rudolph was at the game. They put him on the Jumbotron.
Yeah.
And, oh, Kyle Rudolph's here. Oh, cool.
Hey, look at that. That's cool.
So as we were leaving, the TCF Bank because that's where you could park. Guess who's walking near our car, gonna walk past our car? Kyle Rudolph and his wife and his kids, and we're like, oh, Dad, that's Kyle Rudolph over there, man. And so my dad was like, here, I'm gonna roll down the window and say. I was like, oh, nice. And he goes, and my dad goes, hey, appreciate all you do for Minnesota, everything like it. Oh, thanks, appreciate it or whatever. And I said, hi, Kyle. He's like, what's up, man? How you doing? That was it. That was great. That's all we needed. That's all I needed.
Big fan. I love you.
Thanks for beating the Aints. Thank you for beating the Aints not too long ago. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Rudy called game in that one.
He did. He really did. Bro, I bleed Niner red. Hey. Well, I mean, if that's what you like, that's what you like. That's all we got to say. So, but anyway, we're going to get more into Rudy here in a little bit with ARA. But I think it's time to get to Callahan School of Logic. This has to be addressed. Because there was not a story, but actually a fact that has come out about the worst sports franchise currently right now. In all the sports. So we're going to get to that right now with some Callahan's School of Logic.
Class is in session. You're enrolled in Callahan's School of Logic.
All right, zoners, and also fans of this team, get your pens, get your pencils, whatever you got, get your pad of paper, start writing down. Make sure that you're not, distracting yourself from this because this needs to be addressed. Now, the lower third says W.O.A.T. And usually you think, oh, GOAT, No, W.O.A.T. W.O.A.T. Okay? Now, this is something that needs to be addressed because this team has surpassed every sports franchise in the in everywhere, any sports, any major sports franchise, okay? And that team is the Minnesota Timberwolves, folks. And thank you, Jack. I appreciate the transitions are unbelievably good. I try my best. We try our best here on MinneZona Sports Live. But anyway, the reason why it says because now the Wolves are the worst sports franchise of all time, okay? Let me read you a couple stats, okay? This since Sunday, okay? This team has 987 wins. Now you think, okay, that's a lot, that's not bad, right? No, they have 1,524 losses. And you know what that comes out to, Zoners and Wolves fans? 39%. 39%. And you know who held the record? This is odd, by the way, Voldy, too. This is really odd. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Then they just won the Super Bowl. Then they've won Super Bowls now. And so
That they have.
So there's that as well. But then another fun fact for you, too. I guess, the MLB, in the MLB, the worst sports franchise is the Padres at 46%. So there's that as well. But anyway, let's get back to the Wolves. Now, there's a lot of blame that you can be throwing people's way. But it starts at the top. And the reason why it starts at the top is because it's Glenn Taylor. I feel like KG has talked about this many times. And he's actually voiced his displeasure for Glenn Taylor. And KG was right. This guy does not know basketball. Worth a damn. And it's frustrating to me why the Wolves have been so bad. Now, why have the Wolves been so bad? Well, let me bring you a couple more stats your way, too. 22 out of the 32 seasons, they've had a losing record. Now, I want people to understand, too, from a little bit of this as well, is they're on their way to their 23rd losing season as of right now. They're the worst team in the league. And the reason I don't understand why FSN has that game on and not the Wild game. Because that's a big game, but no, we're gonna put on yeah. But anyway, besides the point. Bonehead decisions galore, people. Okay? Christian Laettner. Bust. Hiring David Kahn. That was a mess. First of all, and the reason why you hired him, also, you passed on Steph Curry. Voldy, you know this. I've talked about this with you and Munson when we had Munson on the show. We passed on Steph Curry. We passed on Steph for Johnny freaking Flynn. Johnny Flynn, okay? Now, there's a lot of bonehead decisions through that, okay? Then letting Marbury walk. What the hell was that all about?
Yep.
You couldn't hold on to Starbury? Him and KG were fantastic together. They were good, but then you let them walk. And obviously, the reason why the Wolves were good for so long is because KG flipped Saunders. Kevin McHale helping out was in the GM role as well. So there's that situation. And oh man, it's just crazy to me why we let Marbury go. And Marbury was so good, too. Jimmy Butler situation. Now, I've talked about this enough, okay? I understand. But Glenn Taylor and that staff did not handle this right. And which leads me into my next thing with Tibbs. Tibbs was the same, Tibbs completely screwed it up. And management screwed it up. Everything was screwed up with this team. Now, there's a part of me, and I know we understand why they've been so bad. We've had bad GMs, we've had bad players, and players that we thought were going to be good turns into absolute duds. So there's that to be thrown into the mix. And honestly, I'm going to say this right now. Voldy, you can quote me on this. I would shed no tears. Honestly, I don't think I would if they left and went to Seattle.
Absolutely.
I don't think I would, because this has been painfully excruciating for this team. It's like, well, they got this, and then all of a sudden it just crash and burn, rebuild again. Then all of a sudden rebuild, crash and burn. But that all starts at the top. Like I mentioned before, that's why this team has been the worst of all time. W.O.A.T, the worst of all time. 22 out of the 32 seasons, they have had losing seasons, on their way to 23. I would not shed many tears, okay? Now, before I end it here, because I think, I got to get to the zoners. That's something we got to get to. Toughest team to be a fan of in sports history, says Cole Munson. And that's exactly right. It is hard to be a fan of this team. And it's frustrating. And then Munson also adds, too, take out the KG years and redo that stat. Exactly. It's even worse. It's even worse. Let's see. The backroom under-the-table deal with Joe Smith cost us several draft picks. Another thing that they screw up on. Okay? Don't forget, we traded Ray Allen for Marbury.
That we did.
That they did. And they couldn't keep Marbury happy, which is frustrating.
Well, they could.
Bring back the Supersonics. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Wouldn't be opposed to that. Curry didn't want to be here, and that doesn't surprise me, to be honest with you. He would have sat out. Marbury didn't want to be here anymore because he came out recently and said he wished he didn't do that. It's curse of Minnesota. It's the curse of Minnesota. So, to end this, there's no sense of direction. And this franchise needs a huge makeover. The thing is yes, Glenn's going to be selling the team at some point to who knows. But whoever gets that, they have to understand basketball. Because Glenn Taylor doesn't understand basketball. Glenn Taylor just assumes, well, this is the right guy for that. He should be on his knees thanking KG, and I'm sure he's very grateful for Flip Saunders too, but they were the only two people that actually kept this franchise together somewhat. And then Cat comes along, Wiggins comes along, and then you bring in Jimmy, and then you take a crap on that. Obviously, there's blame on both sides to that one. But this team has been terrible for years. It's time to just completely do a whole makeover of this team. Let's see what happens. I'm not saying, if you have to trade Cat at some point, then maybe that's what you have to do. But also, there's so many things that are so wrong with this franchise. You think that Rubio's going to be the savior. Yeah, okay. How'd that work out for you? And he's not even playing well for the Wolves right now. Well, really no one. I guess, Edwards is still kicking butt. There's some hope in that with Edwards. I really like what I've seen. But the logic in all this, zoners, I say, this is, you're just going to have to, once Glenn sells the team, then, things might start to change. And get someone who knows the damn game, please. Just please. Or just get rid of the team. Just get rid of the team because it's getting to a point where it's getting ridiculous. So, Voldy, what are your thoughts on the worst sports franchise of all time right now?
It was something that we tweeted earlier here this week because only the Timberwolves in Minnesota can be great at sucking. Timberwolves are an absolute joke of all sports franchises, and this is especially coming up the fact Munson did bring up as well one of the hardest teams to root for in all of sports, that being one of them. How about all the fans over in Cleveland with the Browns?
True.
Up until recently, there have been some hard years for Cleveland Browns fans to enjoy, but when you look at it overall, a team that does not deserve to be at the same level as some of the other teams in professional sports, I think it's certainly the Minnesota Timberwolves, especially the fact they've had all these times, all these years to try and fix things. They bring in good players. They draft well. They get the number one pick a couple of times. Even this past year where there was a consensus over number one overall pick. Karl Anthony Towns, the 1 year where they draft 4 straight point guards, only end up with 2 of them past 3 years. the whole Ricky Rubio thing. He ends up going away. Now he comes back after sitting out a couple of years to start his career. The whole KG trade to Boston, which ended up with Al Jefferson and 19 other guys that barely saw the light of day. Drafting a top player in Kevin Love, who goes on that double streak and ends up leaving and ends up winning a championship somewhere else. Again, Cleveland, the curse of Minnesota strikes its head. There's just something about the Timberwolves that is just a microcosm of a black hole in professional sports. When you come here, you will do absolutely nothing, no matter what happens in your life. You could end up winning the MVP some way, somehow, and your team would still finish 20 games under 500. It's amazing that it hasn't happened yet for the Timberwolves. It might have well have happened when KG was playing, when they were making the playoffs and losing in the first round, minus the year they make it all the way to the Western Conference Finals. But beyond that, I mean, this team just needs to go away. I hate to say it. I've been saying it for a long time.
I know you have.
Seattle, wherever they need to go, somewhere that isn't here. And you know what? No more basketball in Minnesota. I could live with it. Maybe put another hockey team in the Target Center. Something, anything. Make the Minnesota Lynx the focal point of Minnesota. Put all that money in there and just run that train into the ground.
One other thing I want to bring up, too, before we move on to absurd or approved. The whole firing Ryan Saunders and then ending up signing a coach, a multi-year deal, Chris Finch, just out of the blue. Just be like, oh, he's our head coach now.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we need to make note of as well. And I don't want to, harp on Rosas because I think he's trying to figure it out himself. But it remains to be seen still. But obviously, things aren't working out. D'Lo's hurt. There's been injuries. There's no-name guys that are playing. And where does that sounds like almost the Corey Brewer days when he was the only guy that was somewhat comparable.
Oh, God.
Not even great. Prime NJ would barely crack 500.
Yes, he would.
Yeah.
The sad thing is I feel bad for Ryan Saunders because right now he should just be in the discussion for a head coaching job. When he took over the Timberwolves, I thought immediately that is not a good idea. No idea how it is to coach in the NBA. Sure, he was an assistant for a handful of years, learning from his dad as well. But, when you're the guy that's in charge, there is a whole nother ball of wax to go along with that. I've been saying that pretty much all week and this past week, too. Right now, he should have been at least a couple more seasons as an assistant coach before even thinking about taking a head job, if it was with the Timberwolves or anywhere else. But I think right now he should have been in the running, and who knows, he may end up with a head coaching job, maybe not at the professional level, maybe at the collegiate level here coming up here quite possibly soon. But we're going to hang on to that little nugget of information for another time.
Yes, we will hold on to that for another time. Love you, boys, but my wife walked in and she's cuter than both of you. Barely, that's not the point. Okay, well, if that's you gotta go, you gotta go. Go ahead,
Jeez,
man.
Jack.
There's the replay. You can always get back to it. But that stat and knowing that how things have gone with the Wolves, it just shows that everything that that's been bad about the franchise, it starts at the top. Glenn Taylor, sorry. And the thing is you gotta swallow your own pride and retire KG's number. All right, stop. Get those two in a room together. Say, bygones be bygones. You don't have to be friends. Here, KG, take it. You know better than me. Then go from there. That's how I look at it.
Just go away, Glenn Taylor.
Yeah.
Please, just go.
Yeah.
Take your money. Go somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, he's frustrating, but I feel like the poll ads are even more frustrating. So there's that as well. Saunders to the Gophers. It's possible, but the thing is, we want to hold on to that for when things start to get going here.
But it actually
season
happens.
Right. So But we'll get to that. We'll get to that at some point. Anyway, Voldy, let's get to Air Raid. We still got to kind of talk about the Rudy release as well. Just kind of looking from the Vikings perspective into the future, into free agency and whatnot. And we've got plenty more as well. We're talking W.O.A.T, going to the Cards, things like that. So, Voldy, let's get it going with some absurd or approved.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Absurd or Approved.
All right, guys, it's time for Absurd or Approved. Now, we already know where this is going, so Voldy, why don't you rattle them off for us, please?
Well, we already did talk about how the Vikings are set to release Kyle Rudolph from his contract after 10 seasons with the team, saving the Minnesota Vikings $5.1 million on the cap going into the season as well, which means he'll be a free agent for the first time in his career. Just looking at the perspective, obviously we talked about it from the fan perspective and also from, what he's done on and off the field. From the Vikings perspective, is it absurd or approved, the release of Kyle Rudolph from his contract?
As much as I hate to say this, financially it made sense, okay? Rudy, I think, only had one touchdown this past season. He had a couple receptions. But the Vikings kind of need a little bit more versatility at the position. And I'm not saying, and the thing is I'm not trying to knock Rudy because you got to play to your strengths, right? And he got better at blocking. He started to kind of, with his size and whatnot, try to start running over people. Because usually when he gets hit, he gets tackled. And there wasn't really much yards after the catch with Rudy after the first hit. So there's a lot of things that, had to be done. Now, it makes a lot of... It's got my stamp of approval because you're not getting the production that you once did back in, let's just say, I don't know, his Pro Bowl years. 2017, I think, was a big year for Rudy. 2012, I believe he was a Pro Bowler, and he was Pro Bowl MVP, I think, in that year as well. So, financially, this makes a lot of sense for Rudy. And the thing is, it's nothing personal. It's just good business. And I think that's kind of how Spielman and the Vikings looked at it. Now, Rudy wouldn't take a pay cut, and I think he made that clear. And I believe he made that clear on the Unrestricted podcast by Ben Lieber. He's this show and his podcast are very stamp of approval with both shows. But at the same time, going back to Rudy, he interviewed Rudy, and Rudy kind of explained, his thoughts. Now, I think the next thing for Rudy is let's win a Super Bowl, but it's going to be somewhere else, which, it sucks because we love Rudy. We really do. But, again, it's got my stamp of approval. It made sense financially, and you're not getting the same production as you once did. So, Hunt says it's approved too much money and need that money in other places. Age is catching up to him, too. Exactly. And the thing is that tight ends start to slow down a little bit faster than, let's just say, linemen kind of, don't stay very long, unless you're really an Iron Man and whatnot. But, tight ends lose speed, things like that. But, Rudy, he was more of the red zone threat, and it made sense financially. So, yeah, it's got my stamp of approval. Voldy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this was a smart move, at least on the business side of things. 35 targets, 28 catches, 334 yards, one touchdown. Yep. Obviously, a far cry from his Pro Bowl years. And especially when you've got a really good youth core coming in as well with Irv Smith Jr. I mean, he was that number one receiving tight end for the Vikings this year. And, you got Ty Conklin, who kind of really turned things up in the last few games of the season for the Vikings, too. He's been an improvement in that category where the backup tight end position after Rudolph was, pretty much an afterthought, too. In the blocking sense, of course, obviously he was fairly strong in the blocking, but, at the tail end of every tight end's career, the blocking is something that always remains a little bit more consistent. Yeah. Obviously, we can't harp on enough the fact of what he's done off the field for Minnesota, too, and, how he's represented the team, the franchise, the state, and the culture so frequently. I hold no ill will. If he goes to another team and ends up torching the Vikings and winning a Super Bowl, That's life. That's Minnesota sports right there. A beloved figure goes to another team, wins the big one, and, just say, well, he could have done it here, but he didn't. He had to go somewhere else. I think it's approved just from the standpoint of, you know what? I think it was just time for, people to move on.
Yeah, and I think whoever he goes to, I'm gonna root for him. And the thing is, I hope he doesn't go to the Aints, the Packers, the Bears, teams like that. We can't see it. Maybe, hopefully not in the division, I will say. But it makes sense. It makes sense. Huntz also says here, too, Barr is the next victim if he's unwilling to restructure his contract. Hopefully find a trade partner and get a 3rd or 4th round pick, which could be a possibility. I'm not saying that Barr's going to, it's possible. It really is because, the money's tight. But Brzezinski and I feel like Spielman have a good relation. Remember, we thought Anthony Barr was gone not too long ago as well, and he changed his mind, came back, and they found a way.
Jets. Yeah.
Right, they found a way to work the cap, and they did a great job. So maybe it won't have to be Barr. I don't know. I wouldn't put it past them if they did let him go. It wouldn't surprise me too much, but there's always that. Pat and AJ were talking that the Packers makes the most sense for Rudy. I really hope not. I really hope that's not the case. No. Ew. That's all I got to say about that. All right. Ew. But anyway, we wish Rudy the best of luck wherever he goes to. Not the Packers, not the Aints, not the Bears. All right. Next one, Voldy.
Well, it was made official on, was it yesterday? Yes, it was actually, Monday, March 1st, that a source did confirm the man himself, J.J. Watt, is heading out to the desert, signing a 2-year contract with the Arizona Cardinals.
I've been here the whole time.
Deal that is for $31 million, $23 million guaranteed, joining former teammate DeAndre Hopkins out in Arizona as well. Absurdo approved at J.J. Watt heading to the Arizona Cardinals.
Well, I think there are some zoners that thought, well, why are we so surprised? You guys put it on your list. Well, yeah, we put it on the list, but we didn't think he said. I mean, reports, and the thing is, you don't know what's real and what's not. But reports said that he narrowed it down to like 3 teams. I think it was the Bills, Steelers, and whoever the heck else. The Browns. The Browns. That's what it was, and the Titans, I think. So, but anyway, those teams. I didn't think the Cardinals would be one of the top places, but the top 5. I mean, it's a little bit of a surprise, but. I mean, they've got a good young team, but everybody thought that J.J. Watt wanted to go to a Super Bowl contender. Like, obviously the Bills were on the come up. I mean, the Browns want to try and solidify that defensive line. Myles Garrett, J.J. Watt. But, again, people's like, well, did he go for the money and everything like that? Well, maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's something to be said, yeah. But maybe he saw something that we don't right now, which is, Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins. Who knows if Larry Fitz is coming back or not. The thing is, they don't have too many. They don't have a big running game as well. But they're an up and coming team. I'm not saying they're not going to be good or anything like that, but maybe JJ sees something that we don't with this team, and he decided we want to go to Arizona. It seemed like he's happy about it, but it's got my stamp of approval. I really don't see how it could go bad for JJ Watt in Arizona. It could fall flat on his face. I don't know, but it's the hot desert and the big toaster. So hey, we'll see what happens, but. There's always that. Let's get to the zoners, then I'm going to get to you, Voldy. Approved. Good team to be with. See? Easy A agrees with me. So there's that. Browns and Bills offered the most money for him. So, yeah, it probably wasn't about the money then. So there's something to be said about that. How about the funny talk now about a Murray/Watson trade flip? And then also calling the Cardinals the Texans now, which is,
pretty much.
Just something
the Arizona Texans. Here we go.
Texans, there it is. Met says Watt, Chandler Jones, Budda Baker can be scary together on defense. It very well could be, and I think it will. I really do. So they're gonna be good coming up here. So their defense is pretty doggone good now with J.J. Watt. He's gonna be a great leader. See what happens. Voldy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this ultimately, of all the spots that was going to go, I think this one, looking at it now that the deal is going to be signed, it's a pretty smart move. Vance Joseph, as defensive coordinator there, was actually with the Texans the first 3 seasons in Houston with J.J. Watt. He was the D-backs coach, but still familiarity with the defensive side. Another great pass rusher in Chandler Jones that, those two have come out of the same draft in 2012, and those are the 2 top guys that have collected the most sacks up until this point here in their season, as in their careers, I should say. But I think ultimately this is a solid move as well. Gets them out of the AFC, which was kind of a, if you weren't the likes of, New England or Pittsburgh, you weren't going to be. And now it's the likes of Kansas City at the top of the, top of that area in a very crowded NFC West too. So let's talk about that. He's going to a very crowded and very active NFC West that was just not too long ago. In the last decade, it has certainly changed in leaps and bounds. So the joke that was the NFC West. But I think ultimately this has got my stamp of approval.
Yep, and I think it's got the Zoner stamp of approval as well. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, they haven't played any games yet, and it's very, very early in the offseason. So we'll see what happens. All right, next one, Voldy.
Well, we do move on to a little bit of an early start for March Madness. The National Invitation Tournament, the NIT tournament, is downsizing the overall tournament as they announced on Monday, and will all be played in one area. That is the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area, to be played in 2 different locations, in the Co-America Center in Frisco, Texas, and the UNT Coliseum on North Texas's campus in Denton, Texas as well. Certainly with all the adjustments, obviously with the national tournament being played all in Indianapolis, and now the NIT tournament being played all in Dallas-Fort Worth, absurd or approve the move by the NCAA to shrink down the NIT?
Well, I think, them shrinking it down, I think makes sense because of the, obviously the pandemic's not over. I mean, obviously, numbers have been down, deaths have been down. But still, I mean, there's a lot of things you got to make sure that, this thing doesn't come back, right? So, kind of getting to the NCAA, it's probably one of the right thing, one of the approved things that they've done, kind of limiting it because, there will be teams. I mean, it's just 16 teams, not, There's some teams that don't even deserve to be in there, with the NIT. But again, it's not like it's the actual March Madness, bracket or anything like that. But it's the NIT. Who gives a rip? I mean, I'd say it's got my stamp of approval. I don't think it's a big, I don't think it's a big deal that, they brought it down to, 16 teams. It's fine. You got it wrong, Paul. It's not. It's the not important tournament, right? I mean, it really is. I mean, there's really nothing much to be said about the NIT, but we'll go from there. In Texas, it's over according to their governor, right? So there's that being thrown into the mix as well. Gophers ain't making the NIT either. More on that later, it's got my stamp of approval what Metz said on his statement. So, again, Voldy, I was saying, I mean, it's got my stamp of approval. It's fine. You don't have to worry about too many, might be a couple here and there coronavirus cases, but it's the NIT. Who gives a rip, right? So, Voldy, what do you think?
Well, I just think with the NIT being shrunken down even more, I think it's going to provide more quality matchups. So obviously a lot of teams that were maybe on the bubble going into the national tournament that were either missed or were, completely snubbed altogether. That's going to provide a lot more, interesting matchups, I think, in my mind. If I knew this story was going to get so much flack for me even mentioning it in the first place, I would have just skipped over it. Geez, you, Metzler, and now Huntley in the mix as well. God damn, I think I just would have kept this information to myself. I mean, obviously, with it being, 32 teams being held at campuses all over the country until they get to the, Madison Square Garden, that's going to be missed for this year. But I think just being able to play the tournament all in one site, I think it's even more cool to think about it. I wish they would just, do this a little bit more. And, who knows? Maybe it's something that they look at for the future because of the fact that, like for the big national tournament, all 64 teams spread all over the country. You're playing the West bracket, you're playing in North Carolina, you're in the South Division, you're playing in Washington somehow.
Yeah.
I don't get how that all works up, and you're playing a first round game at a second round site. Maybe this is something for the future that the NCAA can look into, be like, okay, we're going to have the entire tournament in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then we're going to play the NIT in, Nashville or something like that. Something to look at for the future, but I think this has got my stamp of approval as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, not saying that it's a bad story by any means. What I'm saying is that it makes sense because you can bring in some more high quality matchups instead of having what are some Joe Bag of Donuts University or something like that thrown in the mix. I mean, it's one of those things where they do the right thing and having the NIT in a central location, which I think that they should do. But let's make sure that you have the protocols in place and things like that. So, you're not spreading this whole thing. And then we have to go through a whole deal of, positive cases and whatnot. But no, I think it's a good story. It's got my stamp of approval, so there's that. But, yeah, Mets and Hunts can just relax, all right? It is what it is. All right, next one, Voldy.
Well, Major League Baseball did announce here this week that with the beginning of spring training and, of course, the month of March, they're going to be allowing in-game video back for players to use for their own purposes of tracking pitches and also studying pitchers and hitters back for the 2021 season. Obviously, this past year, it was taken away from the players on the field due to the scandal that was with the sign stealing with the Houston Astros, and that will also be another blemish onto the careers of many players for the Houston Astros during that stretch where they were in the World Series that did lead to that 2017 title and also again in 2018 as well. Is it absurd or approved for Major League Baseball bringing back in-game video for the players?
Well, I'm going to switch things up here. Voldy, I want your thoughts on this. You're more the baseball guru here, so please enlighten us. What do you think?
I think I didn't see a problem with it. Obviously, last year was a misnomer. 60-game season, and a lot of players were bad. One player that stands out in my mind, Javi Baez, who was, going into this past season, was the best thing since sliced bread, basically, and he stunk this past. He barely cracked 250, I think it was, this year. Yeah. And, at this point, it was certainly, last year, everybody kind of stunk overall. And you throw in the fact that it was Tampa Bay, the Rays in the World Series last year, going against the Dodgers, certainly speaks to how weird 2020 was for Major League Baseball. You take away video, obviously that does hurt a lot of players in an ability to not only improve, not only, at bat by at bat, sometimes even pitch by pitch too, to get the edge on the pitcher and also on the hitter as well, going from game to game, especially during a long series as well. 3-4 game series against one team. You may see it one pitcher, one hitter multiple times in a series as well. That really did hurt the game overall. Now the fact that it's back in will certainly hopefully improve the numbers, but obviously you throw in other things like Major League Baseball, just deadening the baseball a little bit more because there's too much offense in baseball overall. I think it's completely a big stamp of approval for myself for Major League Baseball to bring back video replay, because obviously it's not going to hurt players to be more prepared. Just maybe we should just take away video from the Houston Astros and just be done with it.
Right. Hunt throws in here too. I think it's great that they are bringing it back, but I hope they have protocols in place to make sure teams don't have more equipment around and things like that, which I think they know. I think from what they've gathered, or the issue with the Astros and whatnot, they're going to learn from that, make sure that everything's good to go. And if it's not,
I don't know how the whole video thing works, but honestly, it'd be a good idea to have a team affiliated member monitoring the video at all.
Right.
I don't know how the whole video system works. If it's just
yeah.
a team guy for one team and one guy for another, that's just, hey, can you pull up my last at bat? If anything, Major League Baseball should look into more employment opportunities, hire team affiliated members, just a Major League Baseball person that's, at Target Field, one for the visiting team, one for the home team. And hey, can you bring up my last at bat from this game or whatever, so I can look at it a little bit, and then just monitor basically, just so that nothing could happen. That's a thing that could happen for the future.
Right, and I think if I'm reading this correctly, Tony La Russa thinks it's a great idea with iPads, then going back into the video room, because I think there's probably in the dugout, there's a video room, they go back, they check it out. Whereas you can have an iPad, just kind of like with the NFL. With the Microsoft Surface, I think it is. And they can go back, check to see, okay, what do I need to do differently? Because if he's throwing here or throwing this, it makes it a little bit easier for players to understand what they need to adjust. And I think if you do this the right way, it can work really well. But if you do this the wrong way, this can go all to hell, and then all of a sudden, it's gone. So, yeah, I agree with you, Voldy. It's got my stamp of approval. The thing is you have to make sure this goes smoothly. If it doesn't, and you're sloppy with it, there's going to be teams that are going to take advantage of that. So I think, there's going to be a lot of might be some growing pains with it, but it sounds like a lot of the managers like this too. There are some guys that weren't a fan of it, but now are a fan of it. I think David Ross, the Cubs manager, is one of it. So there's that as well. Was he sober when he said it? That's true with La Russa. The baseball must not be dead yet after Tony and Rizzo and the Rays' top prospect hit monster shots today. I did see the highlights of that, and whatever works. And obviously, you're going to get, a little bit more of a season, more games in the season than you did last season. So there's a lot of factors that are put into it. But having iPads around, I think it's a good idea. You can adjust, and you don't have to go back to a video room and figure it out. So there's that. All right, last one, I believe, Voldy.
Yeah, last one comes into a new rule that Major League Baseball has in, especially for spring training too, to help save some arms that maybe is a little bit more interesting than it should be. Now, Garrett Richards, coming off Tommy John surgery for the Boston Red Sox this past offseason, got picked up by the Red Sox during this offseason and was struggling in his first inning start this past back on Monday as well for the Red Sox, and stopped the inning after loading the bases and walking in one run after just 23 pitches. Now, there was only one out in the inning, and the inning was over. Now, a new rule being implemented this spring training allows managers to end an inning after a pitcher has thrown 20 pitches, regardless of how many outs or runners on base there are. Obviously, you throw in a few things like it's spring training. Games don't really mean much. You ultimately want to get a view of how players are doing. Absurdo approved this rule by Major League Baseball for this spring training for ending an inning early, regardless of how many outs there are.
Well, I think with everything, going on in the world, pandemic, we've talked about it a lot. And, people were saying that this is going to work in benefit for the pitchers. And I think that's what they're trying to do in this, and make sure that, no one's throwing their arms out, things like that. But I think it's the smart move. I mean, it's spring training. You want to save some of your arms. And, I think the whole mercy rule, it's just, as long as it doesn't get into, the regular season, they'll say, oh, mercy rule, you can't, it's just dumb. You wouldn't do that in a regular season. But it makes sense for spring training. You want to preserve your guys so they're ready for the season and whatnot. So, I mean, it's got my stamp of approval. I don't think it's a big deal unless someone, tells me otherwise. But it's one of those things where hopefully they don't have sabermetrics and analytics, get into a lot of this in the regular season. Paul Delly, Barrios, Kevin Cash. But there's that too. Kevin Cash told Baldelli, we are only playing 6 innings the other day too. Wow, I didn't know that.
Just making up rules this spring training, apparently.
Yeah, so
now
it's
the
just
next
like
game's gonna be like, okay, everybody has to hit and throw with their opposite hand. Like,
let them
what's
do
going
whatever
on?
you want, right? Yeah,
just
let them
do
do
whatever
whatever they want. But I mean, it's fine. I get that aspect, but let's not keep changing rules. That's kind of my spiel on it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's got my stamp of approval for this, but hopefully that they don't keep changing stuff. So, Voldy, what do you think?
Yeah, I look at it from the standpoint of obviously a lot of these guys didn't get as much time as they wanted to this past offseason or last season as well. You need as much help as you can for some of these players to be able to go from 60 games last year into 162 this year. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of growing pains going into this season too. But, it's spring training. It's all about just, getting back to a sense of normalcy with games and everything going on. But, you want to be sure that some of these players are going to be doing what they want, obviously for the benefit of their team, are going to be there in the long stretch of the season too. Garrett Richards, for the Red Sox, we'll see. Maybe he'll be that 4th, 5th starter. We'll see what happens. Maybe he'll be a long guy. I don't know. Lots to go with as well, but it's got my stamp of approval.
Yeah, I think it just benefits more of the players, obviously, of the short off season, like you said, and it makes sense from that perspective. But let's not keep changing stuff. Stop changing stuff. That's all we ask. That's all we ask here at MinneZona Sports Live. So I believe that's going to do it for area this week, right, Voldy?
Yes, sir.
All right. Great job, as always. And it's time to get to Shield Shoutouts. There are a lot of Shield Shoutouts this week, so let's get it going with some Shield Shoutouts.
Shield Shoutouts.
I think someone's playing devil's advocate, by the way. Hamatsa saying, imagine being the hitter and being told the inning is over. That's
Very true.
I mean, there's a lot of devil's advocate on that. So, I mean,
Right.
you can factor that one in as well. But, again, I mean, whatever works, I guess. I don't know. But, all right, Voldy, who are you shouting out tonight?
Well, I do want to give a big Shield shout out and also my word of congratulations and also my deepest sympathies to a great group of people over in Madison, South Dakota. That being the Dakota State University women's basketball team. Number 14 ranked in the nation women's basketball team in the NAIA won the North Star Athletic Association conference tournament this past Saturday after winning the regular season title. Only 2 years removed, the DSU women's basketball team, when I was there calling their games, only won 4 games.
Wow.
They won 4 games all season. They won the conference tournament this year, led by Coach of the Year, 2-time Coach of the Year, that being Coach David Moe and assistant coach Jamal Branco, who have worked their tails off to build this program in a short amount of time into a winning team after winning the regular season. But obviously winning that conference title has been on a bit of a somber note as well. Jamal's father, who was a great man by the name of Dave Branco, I actually did have the lucky pleasure of meeting him just one time. He actually came on a road trip with the DSU women's basketball team. I was tagging along, and, for a couple of games, we had a couple nice conversations. He asked me about how I got started in radio, some of the stuff that I do, how I get ready for games and that sort. As passionate of a basketball fan as you will ever meet, especially as the game goes on. I'm looking over to my left. I got assistant coach Branco Jamal to my left, screaming at the top of his lungs. Over on my right side, out of the corner of my eye, I see Dave on the other side of the court, up on his feet, just yelling at the top of his lungs as well. A great man. Well, unfortunately, Dave did pass away this past week as well, leading up to the conference championship game too. And, a couple great conversations with him. But the DSU women's basketball team in that game against Bellevue University were actually trailing by double-digit points in the 4th quarter.
Wow.
Came back and outscored Bellevue 30-10 in the final quarter to win the conference title. Obviously a great victory as well, but it does cap off what was a bittersweet week for not only DSU women's basketball but for the Branco family as well. Send my well wishes out to them as well as the DSU women's basketball family that continues to fight on. They're going to the tournament as well, postseason, and the NAIA national tournament as well. Look forward to seeing them progress as well. Do have to send my congratulations as well to a couple DSU women's basketball players in the later stages of their career that I actually did see at the very beginning of their careers. DSU junior Jesse Giles out of Madison, South Dakota, being named the Conference Player of the Year. Lexi Evans out of Pipestone, Minnesota, called a couple of her games in high school as well as at DSU as well, was named a champion of character for the conference. And DSU women's basketball player junior Elsie Asleason was named a newcomer of the year as well. I did cover some of her games when she was a member of the Howard Tigers back in the day as well. Speaking of Tiger, moving on here with Shield shout-outs here this week. Big Shield shout-out to all the golfers, maintenance, and course staff that did honor Tiger Woods this past Sunday by wearing the red shirts, black hats as well, and the black pants to honor golf legend Tiger Woods as he recovers from that devastating car crash that happened this past week. A really nice gesture and, words of thanks from Tiger as well. We do wish Tiger Woods the fastest and best recovery that he can as well. We wish the best of luck to former Wild goaltender Alex Stalock, a Minnesota native, after battling a heart disorder that kept him off the ice this season. And, well, he was picked up off waivers earlier this week from Edmonton, and now he's going through the protocols and the quarantines up in Edmonton. So best of luck with him against for the Oilers in his time in the Great White North. And obviously we got to finish out the show. We started off the show talking about it. We might as well finish it as well with the Minnesota Vikings releasing Kyle Rudolph, the end of an era, 10 seasons with the Vikings. A big Shield shout out to Kyle Rudolph, and we certainly do hope that he moves on to another team or whatever he ends up doing, and nothing but the best of luck for him as well, because Junior Shockey and his legend will always live on here with the Minnesota Vikings. That will do it for Shield shout-outs this week.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Especially, with Rudy, just make sure that Junior Shockey does not go to the Packers, the Bears,
please,
the Ants. Just make sure that doesn't happen. We don't need that. Rudy, don't do this to us, man. That's all I ask. But anyway, great job with Shield shoutouts again, Voldy. But there's a couple more other things that we got to get to, though, before we end the show, because the zoners need to know that we have stuff that you can purchase. Not only can you purchase shirts, which are $20, $5 shipping. If you don't have your shirt, well, let's get you a shirt. Come on, what are you waiting for? We can get that for you. Because why not? Now, we have sweatshirts as well. Now, the thing is, there's been a lot of people that have been buying sweatshirts, okay?
Yeah, there have.
So make sure you're getting your sweatshirts. If you don't have a sweatshirt yet, $40, $5 shipping, makes it $45. It's great. It's so comfy. Yes, we understand March is coming up, but at the same time, too, you want to be, ready to go even on into fall and winter and things like that. So check out Zona Sweatshirts. And also, Voldy, we've got a whole slew of stickers as well.
Yeah, we do.
Now, you got your stickers. I got mine. I got your care package not too long ago. So we've got some bumper stickers, which are $3.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Now, we have these bad boys as well, which are only $2 as well.
$2.
And $3 for the window decals, which I think you would love. And then the mini bumper stickers, $2 as well. There's so many stickers. I can't keep up. But these are $3 as
people.
Well. So we got plenty of stickers for the zoners. If you want some, please talk to me, talk to Voldy, talk to Jimbo, talk to the Kerf Doctor, all of those people. Especially all of us. So there is that. So if you guys want some, we'll get you some. All right, moving on to our next thing. Shout out to National Fleet Graphics for the stickers as well. We appreciate it. And also Crown Rental, Tyler Knutson, helping us out and getting some stickers. And also, make sure you're checking out the Barbell Nerds podcast with Will Rattel and Sean. And obviously, they have stickers as well. Only $2 for this bad boy. I've got it on this water bottle here, this mug. Only $2 for that as well. And also, make sure you're checking out Jack's Junkyard. Season 2 has started. There's been episodes. Make sure you check out Jack's Junkyard with Jack O'Keefe. It's a fun time. You're going to love it. Why not? So, there is that. I think that's going to do it for episode 55. Great job, as always, Voldy. And,
you too.
We'll probably be back for another one. Unless, Baby Shield decides to come out, I mean, that's the thing. We got to
We're taking it day by day right now. Who knows what next week will be like? So
exactly. So we'll play it by ear. But then again, you never know who comes on, what we'll do next. So there's that. But anyway, Zoners, thanks for tuning in. And, always remember, keep in the zone.
Holla.
Thank you for watching MinneZona Sports Live. Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for live show broadcast. And as Voldy likes to say, follow us on all the socials medias.